Okay, diving into the news, we have an update on Cuba. Cuba is struggling right now. So yesterday, President Trump said the U.S. and Cuba are in talks. So for the United States, this means that the pressure is working. For Cuba, it means that they are facing a humanitarian crisis right now. In fact, the United Nations Secretary General warned last week of a humanitarian collapse in Cuba if they can't get oil. And I looked up what a humanitarian collapse is, just so we're all on the same page. And that is an extreme, large-scale emergency where a nation's capacity to meet basic survival needs like food and water and health, safety, all that breaks down entirely. So that's what they're saying they're on the verge of. And that is what's happening without oil for energy. They've had more blackouts. They've had hospitals struggling to keep the lights on and the machines pumping. Water's having a hard time pumping into homes because they don't have the energy to do that. Food is having a hard time getting shipped around the place because they don't have any oil. Again, we were talking about last time, long lines at the gas stations. And the government is basically just trying to ration or cut public services like transportation and health and tourism just to try to save energy.
What happens if they lose it all?
I think if you're the United States, you hope that means they make a deal that makes the U.S. stop doing this to them.
I feel you. But at what point do you watch a country crumble so much to where you go, I'm willing to watch y'all burn to the ground? Not literally, but I'm willing to watch y'all like crumble so much to where it's like, oh, y'all need me. Does that, at some point, that has to make you feel some way, bruh.
It's just strategy, though, at the end of the day. Like I said, this isn't the first country ever that's put sanctions on other countries. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay whatsoever. But what I'm saying is it's just a political strategy. The thing that I have an issue with, that I deal with this, is like, why exactly do we even care about Cuba so much? I mean, Cuba doesn't have oil resources like Venezuela did. I'm constantly like looking and checking and seeing what it is. And most of the time that I've like done my research, I've only seen that it's like, oh, we could expand businesses out there. Like we could expand our businesses out there or industries out there.
So that's kind of close to what I feel like I got from what Trump just said about it. Because Trump does know that there's a humanitarian crisis going on. He knows. He said it himself. In fact, this was his response when a reporter asked him specifically, what does this deal with Cuba look like? What do you want them to do? This was his answer.
Cuba is right now a failed nation. They don't even have jet fuel to get for airplanes to take off. They're clogging up their runway. We're talking to Cuba right now. I have Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now. They should absolutely make a deal because it's truly a humanitarian threat.
That was part of the answer. So it wasn't really an answer, but then he did keep talking about it. And he said that he's basically doing all of this to Cubans in Cuba for the Cubans who are here. So here's that part.
We have a lot of great Cuban Americans, and they're going to be very happy when they're going to be able to go back and say hello to their relatives and do things that they should have been allowed to do for a long time. I'm very interested in the people that are here that were treated so badly by Castro and the Cuban authorities. They have been treated horribly. So we'll see how it all turns out.
So Fidel Castro was president of Cuba from 1976 to 2008. And he has complained that they had taken whatever from whomever, used to be in the country. And it does seem to me like they're trying to pressure them to get that stuff back, get more favorable conditions for business. And I look at this and I'm horrified, to be honest. I mean, because you're doing this to an entire country.
What does he mean by he's making it better for the Cubans here in America, though? Like, what does that technically mean? Because I know right now we aren't technically allowed to go back to Cuba. Like, there is no visitation to Cuba right now for Americans, right? We
Not for tourism.
For tourism,
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so, what does he mean by making it better for Cubans here in America? Do you know?
Well, from what I've seen, it seems like Trump and the Trump administration feels like they are liberating these countries who have maybe like a socialist type of regime. And so socialism is working for the people socialism works for in the country who support it. But then obviously a lot of people do not. And a lot of people fled Venezuela for similar reasons. Like they felt like the government wasn't doing what they needed to do for them. Same concerns with Cuba, at least the same allegations. And so a lot of people have fled Cuba over the years and come here too. And they see this as liberating Cuba from that, basically.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna sit here and act like they gonna tell us exactly what the truth is. How the real reason why we're handling them. I mean, why we're doing them like that.
I'm sure they would think that if you reopened it up for business, maybe there are riches that can be had that they are not able to have right now because of the government basically having control of everything. You know, a socialist society is different than a capitalist society, but that's how they set themselves up.
Yeah.
The U.S. is saying that's not how you should set yourself up, so we're going to come in here and basically help you not set yourself up like that. Sort of.
Wouldn't it be in their best interest, Cuba's best interest? And mind you, this is coming from somebody who doesn't really know too much about this, so I could just be saying some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this be in their Cuba's best interest to open up and allow tourism there, to bring money into Cuba and to bring, you know, some type of beneficial? Would it be beneficial for us to go visit?
I'm not convinced that it's Cuba's decision to not let tourism happen between the U.S. and Cuba, because Cuba and Canada has a lot of tourism. You know, hundreds of thousands of people go from Canada to Cuba every year for vacation because they're allowed to. We can't.
Got you.
And I think that's all part of just hurting their economy.
I got
You know what I
you.
mean?
I
If
get
you
you.
can't get
Okay.
all the American money in there,
I see.
you can go to Cuba right now as like a family visit or like an education visit. You have to have a stated reason. You can't just go for tourism.
Yeah.
Technically, you can go. But for the people there right now, at least for the Cuban leadership, they feel like this is horrifying. They feel like this is kind of a crime. In fact, right after that tariff threat went into place, because remember, Trump said that I am going to tariff any country that helps Cuba with oil. Venezuela used to give Cuba a lot of oil. The Venezuelan president is now in jail here in America. So that lifeline was cut. And so now Trump is saying, yeah, any other country who tries to help them with oil, you're going to get tariffed. So right after that tariff threat went into place, at the end of January, Cuba's president said on X, and we have it for you here, this new measure clearly demonstrates, to the other one, this is a different Cuban leader. This is their president saying, this new measure clearly demonstrates the fascist, criminal, and genocidal nature of a clique that has hijacked the interests of the American people for purely personal ends. AKA, they're not doing this for the American people. They're doing this for whoever has interests in Cuba that they feel maybe is tied up by the government. And then a different Cuban official said that other quote, which was, to be clear, Cuba requires importing fuel. The U.S. is applying threats and coercive measures to any country that provides it. This means lack of fuel, and it means a harm of transportation and medical services and schooling and energy and production of food and the standard of living. Massive punishment is a crime, and it is a crime. You can't punish the entire country to get what you want. But for the U.S., it's like, who's going to stop us? Question mark. I mean, that's kind of the vibe.
That's crazy.
That is the vibe.
That
That's
is
what it is.
wild.
But to your question, when you was like, oh, wouldn't it be in their best interest? Like you said, it's not their choice to make at all.
Okay.
And also, does it come with, what cost does it come with? Like, we open up resorts and we allow people in. Does that mean that you're allowed to take over our whole entire government? I think it's a regime change that we're kind of pushing also.
I've seen that too. I've seen that they're a little too chummy with China and Russia, and they want them to be, separate from them as well. So again, the question is like, do we care about our American interests, or do we care about just someone else's sovereignty? And it depends on who you ask. You know what I mean? Like, my answer might be different from yours, and the Trump administration is clearly going with whatever we want, we're going to get, F who we impact in the meantime. But then, what are the odds? There was also an oil refinery fire. I think I just saw that picture we pulled up a couple seconds ago. This just randomly happened on Friday. Mind you, they are going through a crisis right now. They need all the oil they can get. And for this to happen, I mean, that's pretty freaking devastating for them. You know what I mean? So they're trying to get to the bottom of who did that, how it happened, all that kind of stuff. Cuba's energy ministry said on X that nobody was hurt. And, they're able to just kind of pick it up and keep it moving as best they can. But some people see that and say, man, again, what are the odds as you're being squeezed for oil? There's an oil refinery fire.
Yeah, a little fishy.
It's a little fishy.
Yeah.
But
when you say it like that, it definitely sounds.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you need everything you can
yeah.
get. You're rationing everything.
Let's go ahead and get rid of the rest of it.
And there's a fire at
that's-
the one spot that
that's-
helps you keep the stuff moving. I mean, it's,
That
so
sounds-
we shall see what happens. But if you are a supporter of, just America kind of getting whatever it wants because of brute strength, this is great, I guess,
Yeah, a million.
I mean, like I said, but again, my thing, I was cool with it with Venezuela because it was like, again, I seen the resources that we could have utilized. I'm not seeing it here in Cuba. Again, they're really poor, like they're really bad and down and out. They don't have anything to really invest over there. So why are we over there, DT? And mind you, he said we was gonna be to ourselves. We was gonna focus on our country.
Let me see if I can get this real quick because I didn't even want to stay here this long, but it is interesting. I'm gonna ask, what did the Cuban government seize that Americans may want back, or Cuban Americans may want back, that Trump is pressuring them for? Man, I hope I don't get a whole dissertation.
Yeah, what question was that?
What do you mean?
Like, what is that? What does that question mean? Like, what, yeah.
So basically, I'm saying if he's saying that I'm doing this for Cuban Americans and the former regime, Fidel Castro, was terrible to them, I'm assuming that means in like a business sense, a property sense. Remember when Venezuela was going down, they were saying that all these U.S. businesses had invested billions of dollars into Venezuela and like getting the oil out of there. And then Venezuela seized it. They nationalized it. They took it and they never paid those companies back. So part of that effort was like, we're taking back what we feel like you stole. I'm wondering if the same thing is happening here.
Yeah, I got you. And
ChatGPT is struggling a little bit. Yes, this says, ding, ding, ding. It says it's not one single item. It's restitution/compensation for the property the Cuban government confiscated after the 1959 nationalizations, both U.S. owned property and property owned by Cubans who later became U.S. citizens. So yeah, ding, ding, ding. So you doing all this to get the property back? And that's where I'm saying I'm going to leave from here. When you talk about Cuban Americans who might start celebrating in the streets at this regime change, you're talking about people who potentially had property, who are potentially celebrating Cubans there having to deal with all this, limited hospitals, limited food, so you can get your stuff back. It's
a little shaky.
I didn't have property out there. Who had property out there? Was it the rich?
True.
There we go.
I don't know.
You got a point.
I guess we'll see what happens with that.